Well, another week and another coach move along the coaching carousel. This time it's Auburn, parting ways with Hugh Freeze after what was a very, very difficult final game there in Jordan-Hare, a 10-3 loss to Kentucky, a team in Kentucky that had been woeful at times this year. They were 0-5 in the SEC, hadn't shown a lot of life with the exception of a game or two here or there, mostly against Texas. And for them to be sitting in their home stadium and for the entire crowd to be chanting fire, freeze, fire, freeze, fire, freeze, it was very, very difficult to move on and expect Hugh Freeze to be the coach beyond that performance. Here's the thing. Talking to people down there around the program, they weren't in a rush to make a decision here. It's obviously been a crazy couple weeks in the coaching carousel. They already have several open jobs in the SEC. Did they really want to make a move right now? Or are they better off taking the $15 million that they owe Hugh Freeze, reinvesting it right now into the program, and hopefully turning this thing around? And then the loss to Kentucky was one that just could not be overlooked. And this was a brutal performance. It was the first time Auburn had scored 3 or fewer points in any game since 2012. And the first time a program had lost a game in which its opponent scored 10 or fewer points since 1991. So this defeat, after a 1-5 stretch, after a 3-0 start, pretty much encapsulated the future of where things were going. It was one of the worst stretches in Auburn football history. Don't say that lightly either, because this team was so close at so many points. And I know that was part of the problem. That was part of the frustration, is that they kept talking about how close they were, about how, man, it was just a play or two here or there. If we had this, we'd win. If we did this, we'd win. If we don't make that mistake, we win. And it just became too much. So this was a significant move, and frankly, a bit of a surprise based on the conversations that I was having a week ago. I said, yeah, he's by no means secure in his job, but we're not in a rush. Now, of course, fast forward 4 or 5 days later, he's out the door. Part of the challenge here is that Hugh Freeze was hired because of his reputation as a tremendous offensive coach, a great play caller, a guy that had recruited at a high level, that had won at a high level in the SEC, but he just couldn't quite get over the hump. 15-19 overall, winning just over a third of his SEC games, 6-16 in the SEC. It was supposed to be, though, an offense that was going to be exciting, an offense that was going to get things going, and back-to-back under 500 records. Now sitting at under 500 with just 3 games to play against quality competition. Freeze was just 3-14 against teams that had a winning record, which was actually worse than his predecessor, Brian Harsin. And it was the offense that was the primary culprit for why they struggled in many of these games. If you look at their stats this year, 22 points per game, 329 yards per game. The yards per play numbers, not good. The passing efficiency, not good. The third down conversion rate, not good. So it's an underperforming offense. And at this point, you kind of look at it, it was Hugh Freeze's offense that was letting the team down. And he had been great with quarterbacks in the past. If you look at how he developed Malik Willis, you look at what he was able to do at Ole Miss with the quarterbacks he had. They just never really could quite get things going. They made a bet on Jackson Arnold. It never really worked out. They went out and targeted him in the portal, and it wasn't to be. He became the 16th most efficient passer and then in the SEC, and then ultimately gave way to Ashton Daniels because he was benched, and then Arnold's back in the game, and then Daniels back in the game. It was just not well executed and not good whatsoever. It's understandable why they decided to move in this direction. I'm disappointed that it didn't work for Hugh Freeze. I think that there were times where a play or two here or there could very much have changed the outcome for Hugh Freeze down the road. But this was massive. And this was big because this is a very desirable job. What a lot of people don't realize is that Auburn this year has a top 6 or 7 roster as far as finances are concerned. Top 6 or 7 in payroll this season. So it's an attractive job. However, the challenges at Auburn have always remained the same. Alignment, support from the decision makers that are loosely associated with the program and very much in control of the program. You have to have their support 100%, but that is a group, though, that sometimes will become a little too involved, which makes things occasionally not go as smoothly as one might like. So this is big. And I think part of the frustration, too, was just the constant rhetoric that we would hear on a week in, week out basis, right? The spin that we'd hear week in, week out basis. And I think once you look back at kind of how things have gone, continuing to go with the rhetoric of, quote, we're close, it just started to wear on people. Like Hugh Freeze, I still believe is a good football coach. I really believe that. I think it's hard to win in that style of offense with less than stellar quarterback play. That's ultimately what it came down to. They did not have quality quarterback play. They were struggling at that position for the last 3 years. At times, they